Hello and welcome to another edition of The Front Page. My name is Andrew McKeever, the managing editor of the Manchester Journal, and I'll be your host today. And today it's my pleasure to have with us here in our studio at GNet here in Sunderland two gentlemen who are closely involved with the Roundabout project in Manchester, which many of you I think have heard about once or twice by now. With me today is Jason Waysville, who's the resident engineer for the town of Manchester for the Roundabout project, and John O'Keefe, the town manager. And John, I know you are no stranger to GNet, so welcome back.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Well, as I said in the introduction, big news going on at the Roundabout. This coming week, as we're taping this show on August 31st, the Roundabout will be closed for about a 10-day period from Tuesday, September 4th until roughly September 14th. I guess the question, and John, let me start off with you, is why was that necessary and what will be going on during that 10-day period?
Well, the 10-day period, it is the 4th through the 13th. Right now, the change order that we had with the contractor runs through noon on the 13th, which is a Thursday. There's a couple different pieces going on here. One is, the project that originally started as a 3-year project that was then, we condensed it down into a 2-year project. The contract completion date is actually November 15th, 2013. From that 2-year period, we've actually been able to, with working with Jason and the contractor, we've been able to shrink the project to what we think is the overwhelming majority of the work occurring this calendar year. I think if you said that a couple of years ago, I think people would have thought you were nuts. But through some very aggressive scheduling, the night work was a major player in that. We've gotten to the point where we think we can get most of the work done this year. Part of that is, in order to build something that quickly, it comes with a little bit of pain. The bridge closure is critical to be able to get most of the work done this year. And we'll talk a little bit more about that if you want afterwards, about what the project will be like by the end of this calendar year. The second piece is the methods selected by the contractor require the bridge to be unloaded, which means basically you've got a dry-laid marble arch that's compressing on itself. They actually need to release that arch. Now, when you release the arch, if you're going to put lateral or up and down load on the bridge, it could become unstable. A load would be a truck, a car, or something like that. So for pedestrian, vehicle, and worker safety, the contractor is requested to close the bridge for a period of time. We've given them 10 days. We're hopeful that it could be less than that, but we're still, once we get in there, we'll know for sure how that'll pan out. But there's a lot of different pieces moving here. We've talked to a lot of people in the community. Just about everybody I've talked to actually supports closing the bridge if it means getting the project done quickly and then start enjoying the benefits of the project next spring.
How much time will this shave off the project on, let's say, the back end of it sometime next spring? Will it be finished now in the spring as opposed to like next summer, which I think was the original date?
The original schedule was to finish up the end of next year. The contractor came, obviously John had said November. The contractor came to us with their first schedule finishing late summer next year. By doing this accelerated bridge closure, closing it down for 10 days, the contractor is figuring that they can wrap up everything next year, including the landscaping, painting, signage, and be out of here by the end or middle of June, we'll say, maybe even possibly sooner, depending on how things pan out.
That would have a major impact then next year on the summer tourist season and traffic in general around town.
Traffic is a big piece. We're going to have some traffic issues to deal with during the closure. But one of the big benefits of the Roundabout is actually solving what's really a 50, 75, maybe 100-year issue. The bridge is turning 100 years old soon. This isn't a new issue that we've been dealing with as far as the way that the town traffic pattern was set up. 10-day closure, when you look at how long we've been working on the project, it's been actively on the books for 20 years. It's been plaguing the town for 50. It'd be nice in 10 days to be able to say we're that much closer to taking care of the issue. What you start to see now is the finished detail. Next Thursday, which would be about the 6th of September. Main Street should be put back together for fall foliage in good shape. The sidewalks will be done. But what you're really seeing start to take place here is that Manchester is really going to be one of the best looking downtowns in New England as you travel around.
Well, you actually anticipated a question I was going to ask, but maybe Jason, I'll throw this one over to you. What will motorists and pedestrians see in the roundabout after the bridge is reopened or the intersection is reopened? Is it going to be kind of what we're familiar with now, or what will be different?
When it's immediately reopened, I believe that the contractor is only going to restore it to 2 lanes of traffic. The pedestrian access will be on our new sidewalk on the eastern side of the bridge. Okay. There'll still be work occurring on the hand motors North Shire side, the western side of the bridge. At that time, my best guess right now is that they're going to have the footings poured for the new portion of the bridge, all of the old bridge and the existing portions demoed and taken out of there, and they might even have several sections of precast bridge set. Mm-hmm. It's obviously what's happening, and I guess maybe to help people understand it, is the existing bridge, we are changing the alignment of the stream. So the stream currently comes down from the hand Morrow side, comes right into a wall, and then kind of makes a hard left turn and goes under the bridge. We're going to put it where the culvert is now that people have seen us put in, which is part of the stream diversion. That'll be the new center line of the stream channel.
Oh, okay.
And they will remove the portion of the bridge that makes the stream take the hard right back in underneath. Right. And we'll put new footings, so pour new concrete down and set pieces of new bridge going upstream over the top of where that culvert is. And once they're set, then they'll pour the place in between the old bridge and the new bridge will get poured concrete in place. And once that's done, the backfilling can begin and the construction of the roundabout can begin. But I believe that will probably be several weeks behind the reopening.
Okay, so basically when the dust settles, to mix metaphors here a little bit, it'll be kind of a similar layout to what people have been used to seeing for the last 50, 60, whatever years. It's not like it's like we're going to see a sort of a part of the roundabout sort of emerging out of all this. It's just pretty much the same. You
will notice it for sure, but it won't be functional at this time.
Okay.
Right. It'll be the process of gaining the real estate. This still until the roundabout actually goes in, the functionality of it will pretty much be what it is right now. It'll still be the T'd intersection with traffic taking a left and traffic taking a right.
Okay. So what's the plan for when the bridge reopens and then we're into fall foliage season, which is a really busy time of year, and of course was a Columbus Day weekend and everything like that. Is there going to be the same amount of work going on through October, or what will be happening then?
Well, you touched on an important point. The timing of what we're about to do is not accidental. We picked this window, after talking to folks in the business community, after Labor Day, before fall foliage. The weekend that we're going to have it closed is the weekend after Labor Day, a very, historically a very low travel weekend. Mm-hmm. People have done their traveling on the long weekend and they're staying at home. Kids are back to school. Soccer games are going on. So, the period of time that we've picked is very strategic. After that, we'll continue to do work. We're going to be doing more work. It's not, we're not just dropping everything and just working on the bridge too as well. The contractor's also talking about the sidewalk that would be on the old Timberland side, now Lilly Pulitzer, 5 Seasons. They're talking about addressing that as well at the same time, because that'd be an easy time to get that done. So we're going to continue to do work. The sewer work will largely be done by then, and the water work is done as well.
Okay. So construction work will still be going on during October and everything?
Yeah, I mean, we've hit a milestone today as well. We pulled out the pole at Hand Motor.
All right.
When we started this project, we counted the number of points that were connected to that pole, and it was probably closer to 24 points of contact on that pole. It was a massive pole, big support structure next to it, and Fairpoint today pulled that pole out. It's very interesting because, and Jason hasn't seen it yet, the intersection really looks naked. It's almost like, and I know folks have said,
missing.
It's almost like when we cut the trees down on Main Street, which are going back in place, but it's almost that same sort of feeling like something's different here.
Mm-hmm. Another key portion to shutting the bridge down for 10 days is it allows us to do the small roundabout up by the North Shire at the intersections of 30 and Main Street. That's what they call a mountable roundabout, so it's made so truck traffic will be able to drive completely over it, because obviously there's not a lot of real estate there to work with. You can't pour that concrete and let it cure with truck traffic driving on top of it. So by shutting the intersection of Depot and 7A down and continuing the closure up to the corner of Bonnet Street and Main Street, it gives us enough time and room without truck traffic to work on the small roundabout and get that completed. So that, what they call, quote unquote, the button roundabout, will be poured and in place when the reopening happens.
Yeah, you know, I've often wondered about that. That's kind of, I guess a lot of people kind of forget about that smaller roundabout that will be put in place. We sort of get focused on that big one, but I've often wondered how will traffic that's coming down Bonnet Street go around that, making a sort of left-hand turn if somebody wanted to turn onto Main Street and head up towards
the Journal, for example.
The Journal, yeah. I mean, a lot of people seem to wind up there.
It'll
I mean, that won't collide with traffic coming on up like Depot Street that is making a right-hand turn. You know, there would seem to be kind of a tight squeeze there, but
it'll be very similar to the situation now. A roundabout allows traffic to dictate the flow, so people coming in have, you know, up through have the right of way, and the people making the left turn will have the yielding. The only difference really being, because it's a mountable roundabout, you know, you can drive on top of it, that they might be making a little bit more of a swing to make that left turn. It really should be a very similar intersection to what you're used to, with the exception of some splitter islands leading you into it to guide traffic taking the right to stay to the right.
Okay.
You know, the interesting thing about roundabouts is, you know, for example, the one that's up at Shaw's, roundabouts regulate themselves. So most of the time, the button roundabout that we're talking about, the majority traffic will be Main Street, either heading north or south. And then, of course, occasional or not so occasional movements down Bonnet Street. When school lets out at 3 o'clock, and we've historically had huge queuing of cars and trucks, that now becomes the dominant leg of the roundabout. And Main Street really has to start yielding. So if you and Jason are driving down Bonnet Street, you're going to follow Jason through, and I'm going to have to yield to you on Main Street. But normally Main Street would be the dominant leg.
Right.
Same thing, I mean, the thing that was really dysfunctional about Malfunction Junction, now Function Junction, is that the main road, Depot Street, the street with the most traffic, yields to the street that has less traffic. But that being Main Street.
Yeah.
Depot Street actually has higher truck and car counts than Main Street. But Main Street has just enough that everybody knows, don't bother taking a left. Take a right, do what you need to do down there, and then come back down through. So that's the thing that really made it so dysfunctional, is the street that actually had the most traffic. Usually you put stop signs on the subordinate road.
Right.
But in this case, the subordinate road was actually the one that had through traffic, but it had just enough to really gum up Depot Street.
So when will construction cease on this project this year? I mean, I assume at some point the weather is going to get too cold to pour concrete or whatever, and things will have to kind of go into a holding pattern.
Things will go into a holding pattern. I would say usually the construction ending point for the year is roughly Thanksgiving or slightly before.
Okay.
I would expect this to be a very similar scenario. Weather always dictates construction season in Vermont. You know, this year we probably could have been out here in April, but you never know, and so, you know, the plan is always May, and hope for an earlier start. So this year, hopefully the weather holds, they go a little longer, they get further into it, and next year maybe even an early start and finish up earlier. But weather is going to dictate the ending of the point of the season and probably the start back up's point next year.
So we'll hope for at least one more year of global warming.
One more. Well, actually, no. Last year's ski season wasn't very good.
Suffered as a result.
You know, I think we'll take a tough winter this year.
Right.
Would be fine.
Get back to normal.
Get back to normal.
You know, you alluded to something I wanted to ask about earlier, which is that this roundabout project is really, I guess, about 3 different projects all in one. You have the utility lines that are being taken off Main Street, and now that big pole there in front of Hand Motors is gone. There's also a sewer and water line element to this, along with the traffic rotary that everyone kind of thinks about. I guess that's where things started off, if we can sort of back up for a minute and go back to when did construction start, in June or July, roughly?
We started in May with the underground utilities. Utilities are public entities, and they have certain rules and regulations that don't necessarily adhere to our construction schedules. So we had to start in May with the underground and the utilities, placing the conduits. They started actually by Bonnet Street and went through Mr. Morrow, Ed Morrow's property, round and back of the North Shire, underneath and through the Hand parking lot, and then they came up in back of what is now the Ty Basil building, and out around Heinel's and Magic Sleigh, and came back into the Merchants Bank pole. That's the utility portion. That was phase 1. Once that was completed, they started with sewer, and then water, and then storm water, and then that brings us into the point we're at now, which is bridge work and roadway work.
Okay. So how old were some of those water lines and sewer lines that were replaced? I mean, I imagine they were pretty old.
You know, a lot of them were old. I mean, not just the infrastructure that we owned. The water lines were late 1800s.
Okay.
So I think we got our money's worth out of those water lines. Fairpoint also, you know, something that we don't really talk about is, you know, it's a privately held company, but everybody uses a telephone, I think, unless you're Amish. You know, there's a huge upgrading of services there too as well. For example, they had a telephone line from the 1970s or 80s running through a piece of wooden conduit from the
1918.
1918. You know, and they reused it in the 80s, but every time we dug, it just fell apart. I mean, it was the wood was totally rotted. You know, the storm drains are a big upgrade. Right now, you know, under the old infrastructure, Main Street didn't drain like it should. Sidewalks are all going to tip in to the road. Catch basins pick it up and then carry it away. So I think you're going to see a lot of different. You're going to see all of the utilities and infrastructure work together. We also brought the sewer line up from basically where Ty Basil, the old Quality Restaurant, we extended sewer lines actually up to right where the iShip store is. Okay. There was actually a gap in the town sewer system there that sewage went down Center Hill or down the old right-of-way on Main Street, but we didn't have any connection there, and those properties were all on septic.
Oh,
so we actually extended the sewer line while we were going through there. But the thought was, you know, in larger governments, a lot of times the DPW department will pave the road, and the water and sewer department comes by a couple of years later, digs up the road and puts in new water and sewer mains. So our idea was to get this all done at the same time.
Right.
Some of it was really tricky. You've got a sewer line basically in the North Shire bookstore parking lot that we had to move one of the manholes over because of where the bridge was going to go. It actually goes under the river to a new manhole, which is very deep, and then down Depot Street. So if you look at all that elevation, North Shire bookstore there, under the river, into a manhole, and then down Depot Street. We were almost 20 feet in the ground by the time we got to the top of Depot Street.
Wow.
That's what led to the nighttime closings for the past week or so, because the excavation depth in that point was over 17 feet deep, and it was just an unsafe condition to try and put traffic above the workers that are 17 feet in the ground. Even though we have steel sheet boxes and Schultz is doing stabilization of the banks, it's still a very, very deep excavation, and any extra load from traffic is not a safe scenario. So we made the decision to do the nighttime detour at that point to allow them to get that sewer crossing safely.
It's actually the second deepest sewer main that we own in town, in an old piece of infrastructure. So another piece that, you know, while we're doing this bridge, let's do it once and let's not dig it up. I mean, that's a real bear of a line to go down that deep.
It'll be there for another 100 years.
Let's hope so.
Sometime in 2120 or whatever.
Actually, you know, we use a lot of plastic.
What did I do that for?
We use a lot of plastic sewer lines.
Right.
and even the sewer that's further down Depot Street is plastic.
Right.
But this one actually is ductile iron, which is a little unusual for modern standards because there's so much pressure on the pipe being that far down in the hole.
So what's going to happen to the marble in this marble arch that I saw for the first time myself just a little while ago? I mean, that's quite a piece of work since there's no mortar apparently holding those blocks of marble together. It's quite a feat of craftsmanship, I think, for the folks back in 1912 when they put that together without a lot of the machinery we have available now. Is the town going to save that or throw it away, or what's going to happen?
Is that a request for a piece?
No, that's all right. I got plenty of marble as it is.
You look back at it, and we've gone down there a couple times to look at, obviously, the arch. I mean, it's brilliant craftsmanship. It's the guys that built that are long dead. The skill to build it is long gone. It's just a phenomenal piece of engineering. It's also very interesting because you've got the 2 footers where the arch comes down, but this bridge is very unique because those footings are actually skewed. They're not lined up directly, which makes it very unusual. It's one of, if not the oldest, dry-laid marble arch in Vermont. And like a lot of them, you can't really see it unless you go under there. A lot of them have been covered over time because bridges keep getting wider and wider as vehicles keep getting wider and wider. But we're going to keep it. We're not sure what we're going to do with it yet. We've taken down the lights, and we're working on a birthday party for the bridge, a 100th birthday party that's going to be coming up soon during the closure. If we have some, we may auction it off for charity. We are auctioning off the 4 flashing lights that are 120 volts. If somebody would be interested in having a switch in their house and turning on the old flashing yellow light.
I'm sure someone will want it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And Mr. Nathan, the auctioneer, is going to auction them off for us during the event.
Well, that's a great idea.
And whatever we raise will go to Manchester-based charities.
So we're almost out of time. Just one last question, though. It struck me when I first heard the news about the bridge being closed and that whole intersection shut down and traffic being diverted all over the place. That must have caused some heartburn among some people in the business community, although the folks I've talked to so far seem pretty understanding, I guess, is that better to get it done in one fell swoop, save time, and and then next year. But they really were fairly calm about it, was that?
Most businesses took it very well. Most people I've talked to have taken it very well. It's kind of been equated to a Band-Aid scenario, do you take it off slowly or do you just rip it off and get it done? And most people just want to get it done, especially seeing that it accelerates the schedule, and next summer would potentially, after June, not see any construction and see a completed product, and just in time for the horse show, which I know is a big thing over here in Manchester. I'm from Springfield, Vermont. I make it over the hill a lot now, but I haven't so much in the past.
Right.
And so I know the horse festival, the summer festival, is a big thing over here, and so next year you would have a construction-free finished product for that time of year and for the future. So knowing that they've made it through the worst of it this year, and if this is a historically slow time of year for the closure, they've been very, very accepting of it.
We're coming into a real exciting period in the project. Yes, we're closing the bridge, and yes, we're ripping off the old 1990 facade and putting on a new piece, but you're going to start seeing the LED streetlights going in. These are structures that are about 14 feet high, and if you walk down the sidewalk, you'll see actually the bases for them right now. Benches, planters, trees will be in next spring. But it's really a point where we're actually putting in a lot of the stuff that, the sidewalks are exciting, but you're going to see things on top of the sidewalks like benches. And it's really, I hand it to the TIC committee that spent years and years and years designing this project and looking at everything. For example, the bridge railing that we put up, the curved piece on the mill pond side, the upright pillars are actually going to get a granite inlay. Then they're going to get caps on top of them. Then they're going to get 3 streetlights on there, and then also a powder-coated black wrought iron type heavy-duty railing. So you're really starting to see some of the quality and some of the thought that went into this project long before I got here from the TIC committee and from town officials that's really going to make make the project in the end when people start walking down the sidewalk and looking around.
It's a very unique bridge from the Vermont Agency of Transportation side of things. I mean, oftentimes they give you a box store anodized aluminum railing like you had, and you get, you know, these very standard sidewalks that are brushed concrete, and the TIC committee helped organize getting a lot of things that they normally do not provide you with, like we have the stamped outer edge of the red dyed stamped outer edge on the new sidewalks, and the very ornate bridge rail that was meant to mimic Kimball's old railing that goes up by the mill.
Okay, yeah.
A lot of things that you normally don't see on a state-funded project, a state and federal funded project. It's very, very, very nice product.
One thought I had was, is it going to be easy for pedestrians to get through the roundabout? Like if you're coming, say, on Main Street past Manchester Sports or whatever, I just wondered, is there going to be an easy walkway to get from that side to the other side?
Well, you can see now where our ADA handicap ramp accesses are going. It's the gray concrete that's sloped down with the warning detectors, the raised surfaces. The unique thing about crossing the street in the future will be with the splitter islands, there'll be an area for pedestrians to stop, so you'll only cross one lane at a time. You won't have to try and run through 2 lanes of traffic. So
or 3.
Or 3 in some cases.
In that case.
So it'll make for a much safer pedestrian crossing at each location, each one of the 4 sides of the roundabout.
The old structure that we had there, the 3 lanes going across Depot Street, for example, I mean, that was run for your life situation. I mean, it was, you know, you're a pedestrian trying to get across 3 lanes of traffic, and you know that the car that's right in front of you has been sitting there for 10 minutes. You know, the first thing they want to do when they get an opening is punch it and get out there. You know, this is really going to be quite a different experience for pedestrians. They're going to be very well lit as well. Every single one of the crosswalks at all the points going around have a really bright street light on it. And I think that's something, you know, as we start to put these street lights in, you really start to realize how well Main Street and the roundabout's going to be lit. Just that little short bridge railing that we did, you know, I'll call it to the south of the Kimball old sunglass hut, has 3 street lights there. The street lights are LED. Each one of those is 65 watts, which is really the equivalent, when you look at LED power, it's really the equivalent of probably well over 200 watts of regular lighting. And you have 3 of those right on that bridge alone. There's a little short of 40 streetlights going in.
Wow.
And they run, they're very, very high quality, and of course you get what you pay for in life. They're about $8,000 a pop.
Okay.
So they're not a cheap product. They're very, very heavy, very nice looking product.
Yeah, it's just, you know, this is a federal job, so it's a Buy America product clause.
Okay.
So any steel, anything that went in this ground into this bridge came from America.
Okay, well, that's good to know. All right, well, gentlemen, thank you so much for stopping by and getting us up to date on what's going on at the roundabout. I'm sure, John, at some point you'll be happy when this is all over, but must be an interesting experience going through the whole thing.
Well, don't forget we're knocking down the pool house
on
the 10th of
That's
September
next,
as well.
huh?
So, well, I don't know if that's next. That's certainly an overlap with this one. So yeah, it's a busy year for us.
Yeah, we're tearing things down and putting them back up again.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both for being with us today and for getting us up to date on what's going on. And thank all of you for watching and tuning in today. And just as a reminder, you can also watch this show online at gnat-tv.org. GNAT is now online and with streaming video, and you can catch the show anytime you'd like, 24/7. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.